Here's my first gen 4runner winch plate that I welded in. I reckon this is probably as close as you can get a winch inward um, while maintaining the stock radiator location and air conditioning if you have that. Um, this is the frame that's on the second gen trucks and the first gen 4runners, and probably the same with third gen trucks and the second gen 4runners. But I just got one of these Harbor Freight winch plates, and I cut the stock bumper mounts off. I then cut the winch plate down to 24 inches and shoved it up as close as I could to the radiator. I spaced it out with like 2 layers of cardboard, just to try and keep a little bit of buffer room in there if it moves around so that nothing's rubbing. It's not as far back as I'd like, but it seems pretty good. To fit the winch in, I had to cut out this support member that runs in there, which is kind of a bummer. But I then bent up this little bit of tube, and I'm welding it in, and then I'm hammering in the ends, and I'm going to take some thin sheet metal and kind of box it into the tube, hopefully get some of that strength back. I don't know how crucial it is on my other truck. I think it's cut in fully in half and was never welded back together, and it seems okay. Another thing that I had to do was I had to hammer in the condenser for the air conditioning. I just took a big block of wood and hammered it. If you look at it, it's kind of bowed in. It is filled with R134 right now, so it was a little scary, but it didn't leak. They bend them on AC units. If you look at them, like some of the big ones, they're bowed in a U, so I figured it was okay to put a slight bend in this one, and then it cleared for the winch pretty well. Hopefully the bumper fits on without the winch sticking out too far. Here it is with the winch in it. As you can see, there's like a little bit of room on the back of the winch from the condenser, plenty of room from the radiator. I may put some mesh behind it so that if this cable gets all bound up, it doesn't eat its way into the radiator, because that kind of suck. It seems to fit pretty nice. I'm going to go on the bottom of this plate here and weld some gussets and just try and reinforce it all. Should turn out pretty nice. Another thing I had to do was, if you look on the bottom here, I had to drill these like 1.5 inch holes up so that I can get to the bottom bolt holes for the winch. I guess you could just drill let's say a 1/2 inch hole all the way through that and then just use a long bolt for the winch, but I didn't really want to buy more hardware, so that's what I ended up doing. So I've welded the bumper mounts on. On the driver's side, I just had to clearance the factory mount a little bit to get it to clear the winch. I just welded it on. I'm going to put a gusset in behind it, but it seems pretty good. I think it'll be pretty strong. On the passenger side, the motor for the winch completely got out of the way of where the factory mount would be, so I've tack welded it into place just to kind of get an idea for where the holes are. And now I've built this like boxed in mount right to the left of the factory mount. That will become the main mount for the bumper. And then I'm going to go through and hack off all of the factory mount, so all that will be left is this boxed in mount that I made. It should clear the motor for the winch pretty well, and hopefully it's strong enough. I was kind of just winging it, but it came out okay. I am just using the stock bumper with this. My goal was just to make it look as stock as possible. I don't really like the big tube bumpers on these trucks, so it should look pretty stock and I'll fit in there tight when I'm done. Another thing I had to do to get the winch to fit in there really tight was cut up the engagement lever. I basically just cut both ends off of it, and then I drilled and tapped it and welded a bolt to a large nut, which I then threaded in and glued to the engagement lever. This way now I can just engage and disengage it with a 19mm wrench, and it got rid of the long handle that was on there. I was running into a lot of issues there. I was really going to have to cut up the grill and the bumper if I wanted to keep that, so this should keep it all very tight inside. Here it is all painted. It actually came out pretty good. Here's the passenger side mount that I made and boxed all in. You can see I have the 2 factory mount locations. They've just been relocated onto this large box here. I just kind of made it up as I went. And then I was able to use the factory mount on the driver's side still. Also, here's the winch controller mount. I just welded a little bracket onto the support here, and then screwed it in. It came out pretty clean, and then I also have the controller box screwed in behind here. I just took the whole box that was off the front of the winch and took it apart and looked at what was really necessary, and then I just bolted it to the front and I covered up any open connections with hot glue to seal it up. The one issue with this is that if I have the controller in, it sticks straight up, and if you close the hood it rests on it pretty hard, so that may eventually break the wires. I'd recommend maybe mounting this a little bit lower if you were going to do it. So this is the winch bumper, all complete. I got the bumper on there, the stock bumper, and the factory location, and the winch is tucked back there pretty tight. The skid plate came up pretty nice, and I have it going all the way down to the front diff. Seems to work out pretty well. I've been driving around for a while. I haven't used the winch yet, but it seems pretty nice. I took the roller fair lead off and just used one of these synthetic line fair leads. You're not supposed to use them with the metal cables, but I found on my other truck I'm just running one of the synthetic fair leads with a wire cable, and it just kind of eats its way into the aluminum, and it lasts for, I don't know, let's say 10 winch pulls, and then you have to replace it. But it is a lot more lower profile. The big roller ones stick out to like here, and your approach angle is awful, and then it was also interfering with my receiver hitch in the front, so I'd have to take the fair lead off every time that I wanted to put something in the hitch, which I don't really want to do. But yeah, it came out pretty nice. The bumper is, oh, let's say about 1/4 to 1/2 inch lower than factory, and then maybe also sticking out about 1/4 to 1/2 inch further than factory. But yeah, pretty good. I'd recommend doing this. I like it.